Welcome back to the channel. My name is Dima Mixon, and I'm the host of this channel. It's entitled Legacy Politics for right now, but thinking about rebranding that to something different over, probably going to develop that over the next week or so. Trying to kind of rebrand this. I've had this channel for a long time, and I followed politics ever since I stopped posting videos, but I really just wanted to get back into it because we're in an election year, and I love breaking down this stuff, and I want to bring it to you and to anybody who wants to watch. And my goal with this channel, I want to make it very clear, is not to gain subscribers, is not to gain views, is just because I love talking about politics. So if I catch myself doing it, I won't do it, but I'm not going to ask you to subscribe. I mean, if you want to, that's great. I'm not going to ask you to like the video, and I'm going to just talk about politics, and whoever watches it, watches it, and I'm really just doing it because I like to just talk and stuff. So I'm Dima Mixon, and this is a 2024 presidential election prediction. A little bit about me first before we get into it. I followed politics all my life. I followed it since I was like 10 years old. I correctly predicted the 2012 election. I correctly predicted the 2016 election. I did not correctly predict the 2020 election. Got a couple of states wrong. And now here we go in 2024 as we have a rematch. We have a rematch for the first time since 1956 or 8. I just one true blank. Either 56 or 8. Donald Trump looking to rebound from his 2020 loss and taking on Joe Biden again, the current president. So this is a 2024 election prediction, and we'll be coming out with a lot more videos throughout the next several months as we head towards election day. So let us get into it here on this channel. I'm not calling it Legacy Politics. I am going to brand it, but here we go. All right, so we're going to start this video by filling out the safe states. So this is just a reminder for anybody who hasn't seen an election prediction before. Safe states are the states that are decided for the candidates by over 10%. So, for example, if we look back at the 2020 presidential election, you had several of these interstates for Donald Trump, such as Mississippi or Alabama. You know, Donald Trump's winning this by almost 30 points, so it's a very safe state for him. He knows he's going to win it. For California, for Joe Biden, when he wins the state, it's going to be about 31 points in California, all that stuff. So that's what a safe state is. And so let's fill those out first for the Democrats. So Joe Biden gets Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii. I'm going to put Colorado as a safe state as well, just because of the demographics of that state moving significantly left. Illinois is a safe Democratic state. New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and the District of Columbia. Also, Maine's 2nd district is a safe state for the Democrats. I feel like I'm missing one, but I think that's all of them. Let me look through here. Yes, I think that's all of them. Now the safe states for the Republicans: Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Maine, Nebraska at large, 1 and 3 for districts: Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, West Virginia, and not Alaska. And Indiana. So those are the safe states for the Republicans. So obviously President Biden has a lower floor for the Electoral College map where he would have 191 votes. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and put Ohio as a safe Republican state. Donald Trump carried it by about 8 points, I believe, in 2020. Yeah, about 7 or 8 points in 2020. It's a state that's trending far right. It's going right even further. It's not looking like a state that will really be in any contention. They always say it's going to be close, but Trump winning it by almost 8 points in 2020, I think that'll go further. So I think that's a safe state for him there in Ohio. I'm also going to put Iowa as a safe state. He won it by 10 points in 2016 over Hillary Clinton, in a state that went significantly right in 2016. That's actually the state that Barack Obama carried in 12. But in 2020, you had obviously the Dallas counties and the Story counties around Des Moines and the other counties near the College of Iowa City and all that stuff go a little left, but not enough to flip the state, as Trump still took it by almost 9 points. So I'm going to have Iowa in that safe state category as well. And not to mention what Donald Trump did in the primary election in Iowa for the Republicans. I mean, obviously you can't take everything from a primary and apply it to a general, but I think it is noticeable that his base will come out and vote in Iowa, and I think it'll come out in strong for him there in Iowa. So those are the safe states for the Republicans. Again, Joe Biden has that lower floor than Donald Trump, but as we see, once we add some of these likely states, it kind of offsets that lower floor that the Democrats have. But they just have so much in California and New York. And I know the New York people are saying right now, man, Trump might actually play for it. I don't think he would play for the state, to win the state. I think you're looking more at a potential play on congressional seats there. I mean, he does have a lot of room to grow in some of these rural counties, not so far red. But I mean, this is a state that Joe Biden took by 23 points. I mean, I don't think that's changing anytime soon. So that's why it's a safe Democratic state. So let's jump into the likely states for the Republicans first. And a likely state is that's what of 5% to about 10%. So if you're in that 6, 7, 8, or 9 point range, then this would be qualified as a safe state. We'll start with Alaska. I think Trump will still take the state probably by 9 points or so. He took it by just at 10 points in 2020. And you see some of the more populous counties, especially near Anchorage and or the districts rather. They call them districts in Alaska. I always mix that up. You see how they did go left a little bit, and Alaska's always that nobody really knows how to poll it. Nobody really knows what it's going to look like, but 10 points there, I think that probably comes down just a little bit. He actually did very well in the Alaska primary, so he has support there. He's going to win the state, I think probably by 8 or 9 points in Alaska there for Donald Trump. So still wins the state, just not by over 10, because he barely got 10 in 2020, and the turnout in 2020 was unlike anything anybody's ever seen. Now, the next likely state for the Republicans is Florida. Florida is a state that's trending so far to the right that I don't even think the Biden campaign will really even contest Florida. I mean, selfishly, I hope they do, just because of, how crazy that would be because of how red the state has gone. I mean, especially when you look at Miami-Dade County, 22 more points Republicans in 2016. This is a state that Donald Trump just did so well in flipping these Latino vote in North and Southern Florida, especially in Miami County, and they really do love him down there. The Democrats seem to have some room to grow up here in the northern part of the state, but this is still, hardcore Republican territory, and I would argue that Republicans probably even have more room to grow in some of these areas outside of Tallahassee or outside of some of these margins. But I mean, I don't expect this to be really any close. I think Trump probably takes it by 7 or 8 points this time around. Again, he won it by about, I think it was about almost 4 points in 2020. I think that's an even bigger margin in 2024. So that's going to go into Donald Trump's column. I also think the state of Texas is a likely state. I think Trump will probably get it by 6 or 7. It's kind of what it seems to be. He got it by around that in 2020, excuse me. And you see how just right the left part of the state is gone, but the right part of the state, when you have more of those counties in Dallas and some of those counties around there, I'll just pull up the whole Texas. It's not letting me see it. But when you see, well, it's not going to, there it is. When you see, he has room to grow, I would say, in Denton County. He probably will lose ground in Denton County, in Collin County as well. Dallas and Tarrant, that is what it is. But some of these suburban areas around the state of, around Dallas and Fort Worth, he did very well in, and I think you even have some room to grow in some of these northern hard red Republican counties. And I think some of this southern state is probably going to go for Trump more than it did in 2020. I mean, again, black turnout was very high in 2020. I don't think Like, I don't think he's going to lose Travis County by 40 points again, and so I think that I think he's going to be fine in Texas, and that's going to go to his column by about 6. So that's the three states for the Republicans that will go into Trump's column. And again, you see now his floor at 218 with just adding those 3 states. I mean, that's 70 electoral votes right there. So it's a lot in Texas and Florida, and electoral votes that once the reshaping of the map happened from 2020, those states didn't mean. There was 39 electoral votes for Texas and 29 for Florida. So you're already gaining electoral votes just by winning states that you're expected to win. For the president, I think New Mexico is going to be a likely state for him, probably 8 to 9 points. I was surprised in 2020 when this state went to Joe by over 10 points. I think I had it in my final prediction at a likely margin. I'm going to keep that. Not a lot of polling data out of New Mexico right now, and again, we'll just have to wait for that. Not a really state that they didn't generally poll, so we just have to wait and see on that. So let's jump up to Virginia. I think that's a likely state for the Democrats. There was actually a poll that came out recently that had this state within 3 points. I don't buy it. I mean, this is a state that's trending left as we see it. And of course, Glenn Youngkin actually flipped the state from Democratic to red in 2021 in his governor's race. And he actually endorsed President Trump. So I think that could pull this margin closer than it was in 2020 with Joe Biden getting about 10 points ahead of Donald Trump. And I think Trump has a lot of areas to grow in this state. I mean, you think of all of these southern Republican counties. You see how red all this is over here. I mean, Roanoke, he has a ton of room to grow, and some of the redistricting in the northern part of the state has a lot of areas for Donald Trump to grow in those. And I don't think he's going to lose Lynchburg by 2 points again. I think there's a lot of areas for him to grow in this state, but it's not going to be enough to get him over the top. And I think Joe Biden's going to take that probably by 6 or 7 points. It's not going to be a 10-point advantage like it was in 2020, but it'll be enough for the president to take that state. And I also think that Maine's not Maine's 2nd district, that will go to President Trump. We will go to that in just a second. But I think Maine at large is also a likely Democratic. This is a state that some people say that Trump could win. Went to Joe Biden by 9, I think, in 2020. And obviously, Maine is one of those states that has that disproportionate electoral where you win the at large, you get some electoral votes, but you also get electoral votes as you win districts. So I think Trump has some room to grow in that state. I do think it's a sleeper, but I think President Biden will take it by 5 or 6, and that'll give Trump. We'll get to that in a second. So, so let's go into the lean category. So that's the 2 to 5%. So we have the likely, which is 5 to 10%, the safe, which is over 10%, and then the lean states, which will be between 2 and 5%. So we'll start with the Democrats, and I'm gonna have Nebraska's 2nd district in that lean Democratic margin. A lot of I was actually surprised that Joe Biden flipped this into the area he did. It got at about 7 points. Obviously, this is Omaha. This is the eastern part of the state right here. 7-point victory for Joe Biden over Trump. This is a county that Trump took in 2016 by, I think, a healthy margin in 2016, or rather very close margin. But Trump did take that. It was a flip there in Nebraska. So Nebraska's 2nd, I think, will go to Joe Biden, and he'll get that 1 electoral vote that might be crucial at the end of the day, but we'll see. I also think lean for the Democrats will be Minnesota. It's a state that's just so hard to judge. Went right in some of these rural counties outside of, but look how much room there is to grow for Republicans here. I think there's a ton of room to grow. I was kind of surprised in 2020 when Minneapolis and some of these counties went so far to the left, because the Democrats burned down their cities and they're still voting for them, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. Biden did not have a great showing in his primary in Minnesota. But I think it's going to be enough to get him over the top. He'll probably win it by 3 to 4 points. I do think Trump's going to make grounds in that state, but it's not going to be enough to put him over the top. So let's jump into the lean. We have one more for the Democrats. I'm going to put New Hampshire in that lean margin. Again, I think it could be close, but I don't think it's going to be enough for Donald Trump to flip this state. They just really don't like him up there. I don't really know what it is, but 7-point victory for Biden in 2020. See how much it went to the left. It was actually very close in 2016 with Hillary Clinton taking it by just about 3,000 votes. Trump almost got the state in 2016, and then you talk about a complete flip in 2020. So I think the president will take it. The president now, Biden, will take it by probably 5 points or so. That'll put that in the lean margin. So those are the lean states for the Democrats. So 226 to 218. Now let's jump into the lean R, and we'll start with the state of North Carolina. And this is a lean Republican, not Democratic. This is the lean Republican state, and I want to show you the polling coming out of North Carolina right now that have shown Trump in a very solid position. This is the North Carolina polling. The average right now is about Trump at 5.5 in North Carolina. And this is a state that the Republicans really just are doing well. And you remember the black turnout was significantly better for Joe Biden. He almost had a perfect show in North Carolina, and even that wasn't able to get him over the top, with Trump still winning it by just under 100,000 votes in 2020. I mean, there's still room to grow. I mean, look at all of these counties, room to grow for the Republicans. And the Charlotte suburbs aren't as Democratic as like suburbs in Atlanta or something like that. I mean, these are Republican suburbs. It's a Republican stronghold. The Republican, the people over there who are the Republican base and election base in North Carolina is very strong. They're very competent. They know what they're doing. And I think Trump is going to win this state by a healthy margin. I think it's even going to be much more than it was in 2020. I think he's going to win it by probably 3 or 4 points, which will put it in that likely lean margin for the Republicans there in the state of North Carolina. And it even might get him Mark Robinson that all the way to the governor's mansion if Trump can endorse him and get him there. I think black turnout's going to be low, way lower than it was in 2020, because there's so much more disillusion with Biden. More in 2020 was a vote against Trump, was a vote for Black Lives Matter, and Lord willing, nothing like that happens again this time around, so, and the black turnout will be low in there. And I think the same applies to Georgia, and that's why I have Georgia in a lean margin for the Republicans. We pull up Georgia in the polling data in Georgia, and you see a significant advantage for Donald Trump. He's up by 5.5 there over in Georgia. That's the RCP average. And if you think that the RCP average is generally not that accurate, in 2020 they were actually insanely accurate. If we can pull up an electoral map here, this is Nevada. Let's pull up Georgia. Let's see. Forgive me here. We pull up Georgia from the polling average. RCP had it about Trump 1% or so. Biden took the state by 11,000 votes. So they were very close. Their final prediction was Trump +1, and Biden took it by 0.3. And the Democrats really had a perfect showing in Georgia. It was a more near perfect showing in Georgia, and that was still just barely enough to get them over the top by 11,000 votes. You look in the 2022 midterms, where Herschel Walker was a terrible candidate for the Republicans. He was outspent 3-1 and still almost took the senator's seat over an incumbent, Raphael. I think the Republicans have a lot of room to grow, and I think with Trump on the ballot, he's going to take the state by probably 2 to 3 points, and it gets him to that 251 threshold with Maine's 2nd district and a lean margin. 251 is Donald Trump's floor. That's what I'm predicting, which puts him at around 5 methods of victory, I think, to 270. He can get there with just Pennsylvania. He can get there with Wisconsin and Arizona. He can get there with Michigan and Wisconsin. There's a plethora of ways to get there. He can get there with Michigan and Nevada. So very healthy chance for a re-election for Donald Trump if he were to hold this firewall right here, this 251 firewall, which I think is very, very likely, and the polls are showing it. And that's why he's the favorite to win the presidency right now. 251. I think Georgia is a must flip in this cycle. I think he has to flip it. And right now he's showing that he's in a significant, great position to flip this state to his advantage, up around 6 points in the polls. Obviously, it's early, but he's in a great position to flip the state. So let's jump into the tilt states. Now, these are the states that are extremely close, 0 to 2%. And we saw multiple of those states in 2020 go to the Democrats. I would say probably all of them went to the Democrats, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. And I think that flips this around. And we'll start on the east side in Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania is going to be an insanely close race. Trump just edging Biden right now in the polls. I mean, it's going to go down to the wire. It always does. 2020, President Biden, I think he kind of had that home state advantage in 2020, was able to shift some of these counties further left, but there was also some counties that went to the right. I think the state's going to come down to the northwest part of Pennsylvania. How can the Republicans on the west side of Pennsylvania, how can Republicans store up the base here? They have a lot of room to grow in these areas. You want to get these fully red. I think the turnout for Joe Biden is going to be lower than it was in 2020 just because Pennsylvanians have seen his policies. They've seen what Donald Trump's policies is. I don't really... It's going to be crucial. It's going to go down to the wire. Obviously, Biden took it by just over a point last cycle. And again, if we look in Pennsylvania, RCP average at the end had Biden at 1.5. Their final prediction, and the final prediction was 1.2. So a lot of people who say that the polls in 2020 were wrong, very accurate. And RCP right now, 0.6 for Trump, and I have to agree with them. I think that Trump is going to take back Pennsylvania. It's going to be close, but it's going to go to his column. At least of right now, that's what I would project. It's going to be very close. It's going to go down to the wire. If anything, I think we will get an answer for most of these states, especially Georgia, from the amount of they counted in the primary. On election night. So I don't think we'll be waiting days for these results like we were in 2020, because when you wait days for results, there is a potential for interesting things to happen, so to speak. So I think Trump does flip this state. I think there's a lot of room to grow for Republicans, and I think they'll be able to grow. And I don't think this turnout will be as high for the Democrats that it was for in 2020. Okay, so let's jump over to Michigan. I think that, Michigan's a state that was won by Joe Biden by probably his healthiest amount in these swing states. And when you look at these swing states, I mean, look how just close they were. I mean, even a perfect, almost as you would say, a perfect turnout day for the Democrats in Arizona. Biden won by 0.3, only 10,000 votes. In Georgia, he only won by 11,000 votes. In Michigan, that was his biggest margin of victory, +3 in Michigan, 154,000 votes. You can account it to COVID. You can account it to mail-in ballots. You can account it to the Black Lives Matter. But I'm not going to count it this cycle, because let's look at the Michigan Democratic primary versus the Republican primary. A lot of these Michigan voters very disillusioned with Biden. Uncommitted in Michigan got 2 delegates to the Democratic convention. I mean, an incumbent barely cracking 80% in his own primary is just bonkers. And not necessarily saying that uncommitted will go out and vote for Trump, but I'm not confident that these 100,000 votes are going to go out and vote for Biden. I mean, I don't think that anybody's confident about that. You have you had Trump outvote Joe Biden, even with the committed into his column. If all of them would have gone, you have Nikki Haley voters, about 300,000 of them going out. I think these uncommitted votes in the Republican primary will also go to Trump at the end of the day. They'll just see how much, how bad the policies from the president has been. I think Nikki Haley voters will either Some of them will go to Trump, but I don't think a crazy amount will go to Joe Biden. But I do think most of them will go to Trump at the end of the day. You have RCP polling showing Trump in a great position in Michigan. At this day in history, if you look at Michigan in March 14th, which today is March 14th, Clinton at 9.6 in the polling average, which shows how just stupid the polling was in 2016. Trump obviously took that by 0.3 in Michigan there. I think, and we go back to it in 2020, Biden at +5 at this point. He won it by 3. So, I mean, polling data shows that this state is going to flip back to the Republicans. Trump's in probably the best position he's ever been in Michigan, and I think that's going to put him over the top in Michigan. Things can change, obviously, but if I had to predict it right now, if it was tomorrow, Trump would take the state of Michigan and put it back in his column just because of all the analytical data from the primaries, how much Biden's disapproval ratings are, and how just good Trump's doing in these polls. I mean, these polls that have him up 3, 2, 2, 4, 2. I mean, I haven't seen Biden winning a poll since Halloween, the last time he was up in a poll in Michigan. So, and even then it was it would look like Emerson. So that's a pretty good poller. But so I think Trump's going to take that state, at least if I had to predict it. Now, let's go to Wisconsin. I think this is a very crucial battleground state for Trump if he were to carry this state. I mean, again, this is just close. I mean, you had Clinton +10 in March of 2016. Trump took it by over a point. You go to Wisconsin and +0 for Biden in 2020. He took it in 2020 by less than a point, I believe. It was, just 20,000 votes. He took it by 0.3. The Republicans were able to flip the state back. There's a lot of room for them to grow. They were able to flip the state back with a candidate like Ron Johnson in 2022. And when you have Trump on the ballot, he had 1,300 votes there, 1,600 for Trump. I mean, I think that it's going to be very simple for Trump to just take this state back. It's looking like that in analytical data. I'm very interested to see what the primaries look like when that does happen later on this month. But I think right now I would put this in Trump's column. I think it's his easiest Rust Belt state to flip. And again, if he weren't to get Michigan and Pennsylvania, he could get to 270 just with Wisconsin and Arizona. So I think he's on a tremendous path right now to win a second term, but I do have him winning Pennsylvania and Michigan. So let's go to Arizona. Arizona is just a weird state. And something that I have yet to mention so far in this video, RFK on the ballot in some of these states. He's getting enough signatures potentially to be on the ballot in Michigan, which would help Trump tremendously. You've seen that in polling data. If he gets on the ballot in Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, I mean, this is going to be potentially an electoral landslide. But let's look at Arizona. Again, Trump in just a terrific position in Arizona, 5.5 points there in Arizona. Again, if we look back at Arizona, excuse me, if we look back in Arizona in 2020 and what RCP had there in Arizona, at the end of the day, they had Biden at about a point or so, and Biden ended up taking the state. They have, at least right now, Trump at about 5.5 points. I think there's a lot of areas for Republicans to grow. I'm not necessarily as confident as the RCP data is showing that Trump will retake this state. I think it's trending left. You see a lot of people moving out of California and moving into these suburban areas in Maricopa County. I don't think Joe Biden will win Maricopa County by 2 percentage points, so I think Trump could probably take some of this margin down a little bit. And I really think if RFK gets on the ballot, which it's looking like he will, I think Trump takes Arizona as of now. I don't think it'll be by 5 points like the polling data is showing, but I do think Trump's in a terrific position to take back Arizona. But if you look at the 2022 midterms in Arizona, Mark Kelly took the state by around 4 points, so it actually trended further to the left. So I don't know what that means as far as when Trump's on the ticket, but that was against Blake Masters, who's a kind of a rhino, so you're not going to have a lot of voting. But I mean, they had a governor race in Arizona with a terrific candidate in Carrie Lake, and she wasn't able to get over the top. 1,270 votes there. She obviously outperformed Blake Masters there in the Senate race, but it wasn't enough to get her over the top. Obviously, Katie Hobbs took that from her, and but look how much closer the margin was when you had more of a MAGA and America First candidate, about a point. And again, I think with Trump on the ticket, he will take the state and might even take Carrie Lake to the Senate. All right, finally for Nevada. Nevada is crazy, man. I mean, you look at polling data, and Nevada is generally so hard to poll. Trump is just destroying Biden. In every poll we've seen, he almost took the state in 2020, a state that nobody really thought he would take. And we go back to Real Clear polling average here in Nevada. Their final margin again, right on tune. They had Biden 2.5. He won it by 2.7 in 2020. I mean, people who are saying the polling data was wrong in 2020, RCP, man, they pretty much nailed it with their averaging of the polling. And right now, their averaging of the polling is 5.5 points for President Trump, former President Trump. We look at the state. I mean, he has a ton of room to grow. And again, Clark County moving further to the right. That's the Las Vegas County. I don't think Biden wins it by 90,000 votes like he did in 2020. I think it could be more like 40,000 or 50,000. And look at that. If it was 40 or 50,000, you take that margin right there is just about gone. And I think he has room to grow, especially in Nye County. Not as much population, but I think he does have room to grow. And this is a state that the Republicans actually flipped in the governor race there in Nevada in 2022 with Joe Lombardo, who is more than likely going to endorse Donald Trump. And they flipped the state. I think it's very crucial. And again, look at this. You know, Clark County, look at that margin, about 40,000 for the Democrats. And then they were able to grow in some of these areas. Obviously, 497,000 votes, and Trump obviously outdid that with, this is the Senate. I was like, what? Okay, so, you know, Trump did that was 669,000. But I do think with an endorsement from the governor, Trump will flip this state into his column and take the state. So that's my election prediction for, as of now, 312 for Donald Trump and 226 for Joe Biden. Obviously, a lot can change, but that's an analytical data view of how I view the presidential election going for now. Look for more videos. I'm going to try to do about if one a week at a minimum, but more than likely, hopefully, if I can do 2 a week, that would be great. Thanks for watching. You can follow me on Instagram if you want, and that'll just let you know how many election or whenever new videos come out. But for now, thanks for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.